What is up, everyone? Anthony DiGiovanni with SacredU Philosophy here with another video on a Monday to help you hopefully get through whatever you're going through, but specifically for those of you going through a time of change and transition, which usually, depending on what point in life you're watching this, most of us are probably always going through that or going to go through that. So I'm hoping it's relevant and I'm hoping it can help you. Let's dive in. Okay, so what does living in a time of transition, in a time of change, have to do with the hero's journey? Because we're still on the hero's journey series, and you got to understand that the hero's journey, again, go back and watch the first one if you haven't seen what that is. But essentially, Joseph Campbell found out that all the myths around the world were telling the same story, and he related it back to the human psyche. It's the human mind that is connected in all these and telling the same story across time and across countries and across the world. So it has some deep truths to it. I've been saying it has some metaphorical truths that help us map out our reality, help us navigate our reality. And so in pertinence to you going through a time of transition or change, which you will go through. If you're in high school, you're going to go through the transition of entering the real world, adulthood, or graduation, and the same thing for graduating college or going to the workforce. Maybe you're going to change jobs or change a house, or you're going to have a kid. I don't know. Change happens to us all the time. How do we go through it? Well, in the hero's journey, all right, there's a moment where after the call to adventure and after the refusal of the call, there will be a crossing of the threshold. Threshold literally just means door. It's a threshold is just a doorway. It's a gateway. And so there's a crossing of the door, crossing through the gateway. And it's the crossing from the ordinary world into the super ordinary, into the unknown, into the chaotic, if you want to call it, because it's full of potential. And potential is always chaotic. And I don't mean that negatively. Like, potential could be anything. It could form into anything, and therefore it is chaotic. And so you're entering into a chaotic moment in your life. Well, that's crossing the threshold. But one thing we need to be aware of is that most every threshold crossing isn't easy, especially psychologically for our hero. It's usually pretty crazy, and it's like sweeping them off their feet, right? You can think of some movies or comic book heroes where this happens, and it's like a complete 180 to their reality. But it's also made difficult because there's usually threshold guardians, things, monsters, people, circumstances that are there to make crossing the threshold harder, to make change harder. And again, if you're looking at this metaphorically for your life, I promise you, if you're going through some change right now, you have some guardians guarding that threshold and making it harder, all right? Okay, so part two is the examples. I like to give at least one movie example as to what I'm talking about, so you guys can kind of visually be on par with me. The best one here is Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. First of all, that movie is probably one of the only reasons why I'm into filmmaking. Like, it blew my mind when I saw that movie, and I was young, but even then I knew it was influencing me in a very strong way. But if you remember, after there's a big beginning in Fellowship, it can be slow at times, but after Gandalf comes back and he's found out that indeed the ring that Bilbo had and passed down to Frodo is the One Ring, like the mythical One Ring that everyone's talked about, that Sauron, the bad guy, created. Okay, once he comes back and says that, he's got to send Frodo off, and he's got to go. And Frodo and his little gang of hobbits, they get together and they head out, and they're trying to get out of the Shire where they come from. And it is difficult, if you recall, because multiple times they almost get caught by the Threshold Guardians, which are the Ring Wraiths, or they used to be men, but they were corrupted by the power of the rings. They're called the Nine, or the Riders, the Dark Riders. Anyway, they're called Ring Wraiths, and they are the Threshold Guardians. And if you go back and watch that whole scene, that whole setup, they're constantly like cutting off Frodo and his friends, or they'll find him, they're chasing him. Usually a threshold crossing is involves a chase, it involves a runaway scene or chasing. But yeah, that's just one of the best examples to see threshold guardians in action, and then also see, because like once they get away from the guardians, in the conclusion, really, man, they chase them for a while. They link up with Aragorn. They finally get to the top of Weathertop. Aragorn fights them off, and and so after Aragorn fights them off and scares them off at the top, but Frodo got stabbed. They're in Rivendell, and they've now entered a world they've only dreamt about. They've only read about in Rivendell, the land of the elves. but it took that whole time to cross the threshold just to get out of the Shire, and it was super difficult, and they almost died because of it. They almost died. So that's a perfect example of a threshold crossing and its guardians. Okay, part 3, I always like to try to make this practical for you guys. That's the whole reason why I'm doing it, for you watching that need to hear this and you need to know what to do, you're lost. Look, if you will face a time of change, you will face a time of transition. My last video was on bravery, and I think what I was trying to get at was you just walk upon bravery. You don't just stumble upon it. You just don't find it and it like falls on your head and you're brave. Okay, it involves a process of going out, answering the call to adventure, and then you pick up bravery along the way. And so there's a big part of that in crossing the threshold. You're not going to feel brave. It's going to be scary. Change is scary. Take it from someone who has had to change a lot. In my own childhood, up until I was a freshman in high school, we moved 11 times. I know that's not like, massive compared to like some military families, but it was a lot for us. We were moving every year, every 2 years at most. I faced a lot of change. And when I was younger, I did not want to do it. I mean, think about that. Middle school, high school. I went to 3 different high schools. That's a time in your life where you're just trying to figure out yourself, and then on top of that, now I had to figure out where the heck I was and how to make new friends again. And anyway, it was a lot of change, and each of my siblings handled it differently. But I can look back and see that it made me better. And it's not something that I embraced fully when it happened, though. It was only in retrospect that I was able to look back and say, wow, that was really good for me. That was really worth it. That helped me. And I wouldn't even be who I am today if I hadn't gone through that much change. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, you don't have to feel brave to face the change. You don't have to feel brave to cross that threshold. You don't even have to feel like a hero. I mean, I know you probably don't. Most of us don't. But that's the whole point of this YouTube page. It's the whole point of what I'm doing. It's the whole point of this latest series with the hero's journey, is to incite in you a understanding that you have the potential to be the greatest good, the force for the greatest good in your life. And not only in your life, but in the lives around you and the lives that you could impact. That line, the line between the greatest potential for good and the greatest potential for evil, divides each human heart, right? And if we're not aware of either one, you're dangerously, you could dangerously fall victim to subconsciously slipping into one of the two. Either potential for evil, potential for good. I'm trying to get you to awake to the fact that you have the greatest potential for good, and then go out and get it. So crossing the threshold, just look, you just gotta go. I mean, I really don't know what else to say, just cross, just go. And trust in the call to adventure, trust in your heart, in your intuition, in your higher calling, and know that it's gonna be hard. No one's saying it's easy. I mean, any successful person in any field, it was not easy for them. Everybody's had to face some type of hardship. So just know that, be aware, know that you're not gonna feel up to it right at the beginning, but you'll pick it up along the way. You'll find the hero inside of you along the way. All right, guys, we made it to the end. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it as always. A like, a share, and a subscribe. I'll go a long way. And make sure you hit the bell too if you do subscribe. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as I can. Just not selfishly, but in an attempt to get more word out there, more conversation like this started. This is the stuff that I wish I could find. And so I'm trying to do more of that and get it seen by more people. And just from teaching and coaching, I know that more people need to hear it. So I'm trying to encourage you, trying to encourage others. Let's help each other. Comment below, guys. Let me know if you've seen Lord of the Rings, if you've seen The Fellowship. I'd love to talk about it because you need to see it if you haven't. All right, I'm Anthony, and I'll see you soon.